black man, doing all that I can to stand. Oh, but when I look around and I see what's being done to my kind, every day I'm being hunted as prey. My people don't want no trouble. We've had enough struggle. I just wanna live. God protect me. I just wanna live. I just wanna live.
Welcome everybody. Today's date, May 30th, 2020, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and host, Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, and I do need to stress this very heavily, this is an adult podcast, which means that things of adult language may be shown and things of a graphic nature may be shown. Definitely will be today, and also adult language will be used. So if you have young kids around you, or for the simple fact of the matter, you don't like the things that I'm about to tell you, now would be the good time to cut me off. Aside from that, welcome guys. And yes, I wanted to play that because honestly, what that young man pretty much said is probably where a lot of us are feeling right now. And I would be remiss in my duty to actually do my duty to want to do the news right and not immediately start with the first bit of news that this just comes off the heels of Ahmaud Arbery, off of Breonna Taylor. There is no other way to put this except to tell you that what you're about to see is definitely going to be graphic, and if you have younger children around you right now, now would be the time to either push them out the room or explain to them that this is America.
Look how they throwing people out here. Got him bleed on the ground. He crying and that is sick.
Please, man. Please, man. Claustrophobic. My stomach hurts. My neck hurts. Everything hurts. There's some water or something. Please. I can't breathe all the time.
You're not even resisting the rest, bro.
His whole nose is
Fall with him.
Bro, but why you just sitting there? He ain't doing nothing. Now put him in the car.
They'll kill me.
how long y'all gotta hold him down?
This is why you don't do drugs, kids.
It ain't about drugs, bro. Y'all understand
Y'all don't gotta put y'all
in his neck, bro.
right.
He is human, bro.
And what you actually just saw there was initially the first video of the death of George Floyd. As you can tell, that the police officer had his knee on the guy's neck and literally face down on the ground. Well, what actually doesn't show in that video, and actually other videos have surfaced, is that other officers that were on the other side of the car were also on top of this man. And then after a while, like the video suggested, he became non-responsive. And eventually did die of asphyxiation. Now, that is just like I said, we are just off the heels of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor's cases, where Breonna Taylor, for all those that may not remember, was literally killed because the police got the wrong address and decided to do a no-knock warrant and killed her, and then her boyfriend, who was defending her at the time, was brought up on charges of shooting at law enforcement officers when, I'm sorry, when you're barging into somebody's house in the middle of the night, especially mine, and I don't know who you are, I would shoot you too. And at the same time, Ahmaud Arbery, who was also killed because two white people decided to play would-be cops, and decided to kill him and saying that they're fearing for his lives. So in this case, this is so recent to have this many deaths in the span of 3 weeks, and this and I'm gonna be honest with George Floyd, it did lead to it was a catalyst to a lot of stuff that we see now. Now, of course, as the story goes on, those 4 officers were taken into custody.
Overnight, chaos in Minneapolis. Crowds of protesters swarmed the streets, facing off with officers in riot gear who fired tear gas and rubber bullets. Another demonstration in Chicago.
This is a trauma that a lot of us African Americans have to deal with.
A bystander's cell phone video captured the incident Monday night. A Minneapolis officer pinning George Floyd face down, pressing a knee into his neck. For at least 3 minutes on the video, Floyd pleads for help, saying he can't breathe at least a dozen times. Then he becomes unresponsive as onlookers shout at the officer.
Get off of him now!
Security footage from a nearby business obtained by NBC News shows what appears to be the moments leading up to Floyd's death. Officers are seen removing Floyd from a parked car and handcuffing him before walking him across the street. In an initial press release, police said they arrived at the scene for a reported forgery in progress and that the suspect appeared to be under the influence and physically resisted officers. Once the man was handcuffed, police said officers noted he appeared to be suffering medical distress and called for an ambulance, but the mayor called it wrong at every level.
What we saw was horrible, completely and utterly messed up. This man's life matters.
The 46-year-old Floyd played basketball in college and lived most of his life in Texas, working as a truck driver and security guard.
It's just heartbreaking when you watch how they killed him, how his knee was on his neck. Not for 1 minute, not for 2 minutes, not for 3 minutes, not for 4 minutes, but 8 minutes.
LeBron James posted this image on social media of the officer kneeling on Floyd with former quarterback Colin Kaepernick kneeling in protest of police brutality, writing, "Do you understand now, or is it still blurred to you?" The case is already drawing comparisons to another high-profile police confrontation in 2014.
When you look at that video, what goes through your head?
Oh, I see another senseless killing.
Gwen Carr is the mother of Eric Gardner, who died after police in New York placed him in a chokehold.
And it's like a reoccurring nightmare. And this has to stop. Something has to be done.
Now, and she's right. Being Eric Gardner's mom, she definitely would have an idea of that. Those 4 officers were actually brought in and arrested. I'm sorry, those four officers were fired. Let me start there because this is a whole track of what actually happened. So those 4 officers, that 2 of them that you do see in the video, along with 2 others, were actually fired hours after that initial taping, and really from there it just gets from there, Minneapolis honestly just becomes the new riding area. And what do you say, Alex? This PD is trying to push some bullshit, saying that he had pre-existing heart conditions and a toxin in his system, that with the added stress is what killed him. They're saying that there was no evidence of asphyxiation. Yeah, and that was another thing that I was actually trying to find. And I thought I had it up. Where yes, the initial preliminary report that came out was that they tried to say that pre-existing heart conditions, along with police restraint, actually would led to his demise. It wasn't the fact of asphyxiation, which I find completely amazing, considering the fact that that officer's knee, along with his weight, was on the back of his neck, and yet somehow asphyxiation did not happen. Yeah, I'm calling bullshit on that. Which is the reason why the family is actually going to get an independent, is getting an independent autopsy done. just because of the fact that yes, they are trying in so many ways to try to demonize and villainize this man, just because they know this is how you actually get law enforcement officers out of cases where they have killed a black man. It happened. It happened with Botham John. They're trying to do that with Mr. Arbery. They're trying to do that with Mrs. Taylor. They are trying to find ways of villainizing the victims. And trust me, I know that from firsthand experience that when a black person's killed, and unfortunately when a white person is the person that is some way responsible for that person's death, they will do everything they can to villainize the victim in order to make it easier for the murderer. That's just the truth. And I don't apologize for that. I don't apologize for not saying that, just because I have seen that firsthand. Because that's just what they do to actually grease the wheels in their favor. It happened with Botham Jean when you sat there and said, when I sat there and said in my podcast, Botham Jean, how in the world could Amber Geiger get anything less but life in prison? Honestly, she should. Honestly, even death penalty. How else would she have not gotten 10 years? Because they had to dress it up and say, oh, her and Botham John were in a relationship. Oh, here's the picture of him and her, and they must have had something going on, because why else would she walk into an apartment that wasn't hers and shoot a defenseless man in the back? They tried. And the reason why I say that, they're trying here in this case. Even more so, this is why I say I cannot, above all else, blame people in Minnesota right now. But getting back to it, another thing that was so crazy is that the officer, Officer Nee, that's what I'm gonna start calling him, Officer Nee, Officer Derek Chauvin, is what he was charged with that is still crazy.
That former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is in custody. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been charged by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office with murder and with manslaughter. Questions?
Yes, what charge of murder?
He has been charged with third-degree murder. We are in the process of continuing to review the evidence. There may be subsequent charges later. I failed to share with you a detailed complaint will be made available to you this afternoon. I didn't want to wait any longer to share the news that he's in custody and has been charged with murder.
What about the other three?
Okay, so yes, Officer Nee was actually taken into custody as of yesterday for third-degree murder. For all those that don't know what that is, because usually if you usually watch Law and Order or any of those other cop shows, you usually hear the first-degree or second-degree murder. Third-degree murder, to basically sum it up, is basically the underlying notion that you're arresting that somebody was killed that may have had felonious activity, which means that if an officer was killing someone who was in the act of any type of forgery or any type of larceny, things of that nature that constitute a felony, and the officer kills them, then that is, or someone kills them, then that is the act of third-degree murder. I call it bullshit. Now, I'm not sure why we're not pushing for second degree, because first degree is premeditated. Second degree is that you just kill somebody and have a plan. And second degree murder to me seems like a very, very easy and possible thing to prove, really. But it's also interesting to now where, like I said, Minnesota being that it's a hotbed, and that now this was over the course of 3 days. This actually not even the full week. This was over the course of post Memorial Day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because this actually happened as far as the riots occurred. Now the riots occurred immediately after the day after George Floyd's death, in which the craziest thing I have never seen on my 37 years on this earth. I have never seen something that I'm about to play that has actually happened, and in this I say this is today's America. that when you're reporting something and you get arrested for it.
In this, as we're seeing these remarkable pictures with this law enforcement presence directly behind you, is the why people have been out on the streets protesting, why this violence is taking place. There is some action behind you. Hang on.
Yep. We've got one person being arrested here. We've got... We're meeting? Yep, we're good. Yep, hold on. I got you. Hold on. They had us here. We're speaking with State Patrol right now. Give us a second, guys. We can move back to where you'd like. We can move back to where you'd like here. We are live on the air at the moment. This is the four of us. We are one team. Just put us back where you want us. We are getting out of your way, so just let us know. Wherever you'd want us, we will go. We are just getting out of your way when you're advancing through the intersection. So just let us know, and we got you. And this is a scene here playing out in Minneapolis. This is part of the advanced police presence that we saw come over the course of really minutes when the local police showed up at the fire department, or with the fire department, I should say, on that building we showed you that was burning. This is among the State Patrol unit that was advancing up the street, saying and scattering the protesters at that point for people to clear the area. And so we walked away. I'm sorry?
You're under arrest.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Officers with CNN, and he's on the air right now.
Okay.
You are arresting him live on CNN. We told you before that we are with CNN.
If you're just tuning in, you are watching our correspondent, Omar Jimenez, being arrested by state police in Minnesota. We're not sure why our correspondent is being arrested.
Hang on one second, Allison. Let's listen into what these officers are saying. That is an American television reporter, Omar Jimenez, being led away by police officers. He clearly identified himself as a reporter. He was respectfully explaining to the state police that our CNN team was there and moving away as they would request. And then for some reason, he was just taken in to police custody live on television. I'm sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you, Allison. I just wanted to listen to see if we could hear more from the officers, the state police, as this is going on.
Yeah. We're trying to see what's going to happen, John, obviously, to the rest.
I'm about there, guys. We were just out here reporting the closure of the streets. They just, Omar was just arrested. I believe they're about to, we're all about to be arrested. That's our producer.
Our CNN producer is being...
I'm probably going to be taken in a minute.
Our CNN camera.
Okay, so I'm just going to cut off right there. So basically what you guys have just seen, realistically, was in a U.S. city that a reporter, a producer, and eventually his cameraman, because they all get taken. I apologize, the video wasn't coming in as crisp as I wanted to. But yeah, the entire CNN crew that was following this entire situation has decided that that the police decided that we're just going to arrest you. And keep in mind, nothing was said. And I know a lot of you people out there probably watch this going, well, did they tell them what they're arrested for? Did they violate curfew? Was martial law declared? Was, any of the multiple reasons why they could arrest you? And you can hear the guy saying, you can hear the reporter saying, well, what am I being arrested for? And of course the cop just says, you're under arrest. Okay, what are you under arrest for? He kept on saying, well, sir, what am I under arrest for? Because that's what you're supposed to do as a citizen. If you're about to be arrested, you can ask the officer, well, what am I being arrested for? What am I being detained for? They cannot just be silent. Personally, for me, when I saw that video, I was just simply saying, I think they didn't want to show. I think they honestly did not want to. The police did not want that video to be shown. I think that the simple fact of the matter of it is just that the more we show the ugliness of police brutality, the more a lot of people are going to be looking at Cap, and Kaepernick should be. If I was calling Kaepernick right now, I would have a shirt that said, I told you so. Because that's exactly what's happening. There is nothing out there aside from a man being killed at the hands of law enforcement, another black man being killed at the hands of law enforcement, and I'm going to be honest, I'm tired of seeing the cycle. That's why I say for a lot of what's going on right now, I'm not mad about it. A lot of people are mad about the protests and about the rioting, and I'm just like, well, this is what happens when you push a group of people too far. You push. And it's amazing when people say, well, why can't you protest? I said, because when you protested peacefully, you had a problem with it. When you sat there and said, well, find a time and place to protest. Don't protest right now. Shut up and dribble. Pick up, play football like we pay you to do. Entertain us. Us being the same very racist that'll turn around and sit there and say, well, I don't understand why these people are protesting. Again, this is all leading up to some fact of the matter of when you push, and you push, civil disobedience leads to violence. It always has. But apparently, like I always said before, when you peacefully protest, you say you can't understand. When they use violence, then all of a sudden you can hear them very clearly. But the funny part is, historically, the same people who are complaining about protesting and rioting and use of violence in so many areas are the very same people that are complaining about another group that's doing it. So again, I say, you cannot say above all else that this doesn't lead anywhere. This is exactly where it leads to. This is exactly the melting pot of where a lot of people are just saying, we are fed up, and I cannot blame them for that. Yes, Kelly, they came back for them. They did. They were actually released hours later. But yeah, it's just crazy that the rioting, it's what's questioned. But yet at the same time, you're not questioning what got us there. Even more so is when you have when you have the racists that are out there, they're coming out defending the cops, which I expect. But in this case, well, let's just be honest, this was weird.
Wrestling coach in Bethel Schools is sparking outrage tonight in the wake of that deadly arrest in Minnesota.
The Post is defending the police officers, and New at 11, KOMO's Tammy Mutasa spoke with parents and the coach tonight. Tammy, what did they have to say?
Yeah, Preston, parents and people in the community are angry, saying the Post is unacceptable and racist. Tonight, I talked to that coach. He says he's not racist and he's sorry, and he was defending police officers.
I'm not a racist man. I don't have that in me. My children don't have that in them. I didn't instill that in them.
Dave Hollenbeck will be the first to admit his Facebook post is insensitive.
I'm sorry that I offended anybody. That was not my point. I was trying to show something.
The first-year Bethel wrestling coach is pictured with the knee pressed into his back, saying, not dead yet. He's referring to the Minneapolis police officer seen in this video pinning his knee on George Floyd's neck while he's handcuffed, begging to breathe. He later died. The 4 officers in the arrest were fired.
I have a specialty in fighting on the ground. And I know that just putting your knee on the back of somebody's neck, to me, I would say that that's not going to lead to death.
When this happened, I was completely blown.
Bethel parents like Georgine Edwards say they're outraged.
Really, quite frankly, sick to know that someone that people trust with their kids was speaking and interpreting such a horrifying situation in the manner that he did.
School district leaders say an investigation is underway and Hollenbeck is still considered an employee. But some parents are calling for the coach to be fired.
The picture and the caption attached to the picture definitely exuded racial tendencies.
Hollenbeck says he didn't want his post to divide an already fractured world.
The picture was not intended to be racist.
The picture was not intended to be racist. But you took a situation where a black man was killed with a knee on his back just for you to put a knee on the back of his neck, and you decided to do a picture of where someone's got their knee on the back of your neck and trying to sit there and say that, you know, it's not racist. I'm not a racist. That's not within me. See, that's just great. See what that is, ladies and gentlemen? That's just great PR. That really is. You know what that is? That is someone saying, oh, I fucked up. Let me get public relations. Let me try to clean up my image as a sombering man who is aware of his white privilege. Because it is amazing to me that when you get to that point, it's like, okay, well, I'm not racist, but I'm just trying to explain that the move that he's in doesn't lead to death because I can do it. And trust me, he's not the only one. There are many other actual social medias out there where there are plenty of guys right now with their buddy having their knee on the back of their necks, and they think it's fun. They think it's comical. And that kind of behavior only leads to what we know now. And the simple fact of the matter is, at least this behavior that murdered black men by law enforcement is passable. Even so much more so to where they look at it and they think it's a joke. And it's not a joke. It's actually a very serious thing. And what'd you say, Margie? Bethel, parents? Okay. Yeah, applied pressure makes a difference. Yeah. Applied pressure and 4 bodies on top of another one makes a hell of a lot of difference. You're exactly right. But this is why I'm saying it's just that this is why I say when you look at all this, this is why I sit there and say, because I've had conversations about this people on social media, and I've sit there and said it. I've got nothing against the riots. I mean, yeah, they might have burned down some buildings, some Targets, some areas, some food stores in the area. But again, like Alex said earlier, a lot of people are rioting aren't even from there. Even more so, there's stories that there may have been officers who posed as rioters who actually started areas, throwing stuff in windows, spray paint, and all this stuff, that they might have also had a hand in assisting the riots. And so when you have that to the mix, it's hard to sit there and say at this point that a lot of what's going on right now is just purely people being angry. Because let's be honest, you can take rioters and you can dress it in any narrative as you want, but what it comes down to is that we're tired of asking. It's like you can't ask that. And then also, this is also another reason why I sit there and say, whenever I talk to law enforcement officers, this is the reason why we don't trust you. This is the exact reason why we don't trust you. And that's what I was gonna say before I start to the next clip. It's just like what Paul Rosenberg of Ebro in the Morning said, and I still say this as the one thing that a law enforcement officer, and I tell law enforcement officers this whenever they bring up the fact, because some of them do watch my show, and they've heard me say "fuck the police," and they sit there and said, "Well, Will, we want to like you, but you say fuck the police, and I'm police, and I'm black, which makes it harder than that." And I sat there and said, well, you know what? You want to know how you want to get people on your side? And he goes, yeah. I said, you want to know how you want to get me on your side? He goes, yeah. I said, do you consider yourself a good officer? He goes, of course. I said, do you know the bad ones? He goes, and I knew it, and I knew he knew what I meant when I said when his facial structure changed, and I'm like, well, you know who the bad officers are, right? And he goes, well, I mean, we got guys who are. I said, don't give me the PC answer, please don't. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so if you know if you know who the bad officers are, do you call them out? He gets immediately quiet. I said, and I was like, that's why. I said because I'm gonna give you a wonderful piece of advice. If you and your fellow officers who call themselves good cops call out the bad cops publicly and continuously do it, you will have more public support behind you than you do now. Because when we're at our jobs, you're literally asking us to call out the bad ones. But law enforcement is the only occupation out there to where good cops and bad cops can work together, and the good cops will never call out the bad cops. And you guys are literally the biggest gang in America. You're actually the biggest dangerous gang in America. Not Bloods, not Crips, not Vice Lords, or the many of them out there. You guys are the biggest threat to America because if one of y'all speaks out, you're fired. But if none of you speak out, you're covered. And at the same time, a bad cop can keep his job because a good cop will not call him out. The officer I was talking to walked off because he couldn't say anything. He couldn't say anything in the simple sense that pretty much that's the point. And that's why I keep saying to every law enforcement officer that I talk to, that if you want us to understand where you're coming from, call out the ones that are doing a terrible job. Then you might see your friends in the force are. Then again, you might actually see what we're talking about too. What do you say, Alex? What do you say? I know some people can either have manual or subconscious blinders when it comes to things like this, but being white and seeing that, how can that wrestling coach not think this is racist? Fuck. At the very bare minimum, it's an act of being insanely insensitive asshole. Exactly. And I'm glad you get it, Alex. I mean, trust me, I'm glad you get it because you see it that way. Because how else can someone not take what the wrestling coach did as flat out racist, and he calls himself, I'm not a racist? Well, there's no way in hell that you can be that goddamn blind, personally. Even more so with the fact that a lot of people are now realizing police brutality against black people, especially in this case.
A disturbing video has surfaced of a Jackson police officer yesterday afternoon. In this video, you can see that the officer around the neck of a shirtless male as he's being pushed up against a car. This happened near the Beauty Zone and 88-cent store on Bailey Avenue around 4:30 in the afternoon yesterday. That location is adjacent to the Jackson Mall. The officer has been placed on administrative leave, according to Chief James Davis. In a statement, Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba said, quote, after being made aware of a video that has surfaced of a Jackson police officer in confrontation with an individual, the officer involved has been placed under administrative leave, pending the outcome of internal affairs investigation.
Now, I would love to see someone try to sit there and explain when you see a cop press up a young man, and I mean just he damn near Mufasa'd him across the rest of that car, and you're gonna try to sit there and explain that for simple fact of the matter, that what could he have done at that point that would literally and figuratively instigate him just basically putting hands on him. And that thing what kills me is that when officers get that far gone and do shit like that, that alone says a lot. And even more so, the silence behind those who have the ability to remove said cops says a lot. So again, it's just crazy as far as that. And again, speaking of cops, I wish excuse me, I wish that well, that's not the only crazy stories we got. But is involving law enforcement, that is, especially in the sense of law enforcement being used, being weaponized. Law enforcement being weaponized by the Karens and the Bills and the Connors of the world. You probably saw this story a little bit earlier today, just because a woman decided that she wasn't going to put her dog on a leash.
I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African American man, I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately. Stop. Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me?
The messaging aimed at her has been, quite significant. And some of the messaging, I am told, has been death threat. And that is wholly inappropriate and abhorrent and should stop immediately. I think her apology is sincere. I'm not sure if in that apology she recognizes that while she may not be or consider herself a racist, that particular act was definitely racist.
That's crazy, isn't it? That itself it is absolutely nuts. And that's just a story of law enforcement being weaponized against black people. Especially for a woman that sat there, and I'm sorry, did y'all not see her choking the shit out of her dog? I'm like, and the funny part was, I had the entire story, excuse me, I had the entire story where all the guy told her, because he's an avid bird watcher, and he sat there and told the lady, your dog, you have the dog in Central Park in an area where you're not supposed to have the dog unleashed. She took offense to that. Even more so, she took offense to the fact that as she's sitting there trying to talk to the man, saying, I'm going to call the police and I'm going to say you're threatening my life. And I'm sorry, where along the lines do you see stuff like that to where it's been used? Let's not forget, not too long ago, remember Barbecue Karen? Remember Karen that wanted to sit there with the glasses on, the phone on, wanted to sit there and literally call the police for people barbecuing in a park. Let's not also forget about the guy where the police were called by a guy moving into an apartment, and the person there who was a resident decided to play resident manager and say you don't belong here, and call the police and sit there and said there's a man here that doesn't belong here. There's a black man here that doesn't belong here. And I was like, and people sit there and people look at that video and they go, well, where does it come from? Very simple. It's because they've seen other people do it. They've seen other people do it, and it's effective, and they think it's effective if they say the right words. And this goes back again to what I said about the police and how they're trained, because if they hear certain stuff like that, because you understand what the woman said that was key. I'm going to tell them that a black man is threatening my life. And it's amazing how she Amazing how she went from perpetrator, how she went from victim to perpetrator and realized, oh, I can say whatever I need to say to get him arrested. Or immediately, or turn on the waterworks as far as crying and make the whole show look real. Thankfully, and I'm going to say this at the best, thankfully the man was recording. And this is why I say that many times social media is helpful because Will Smith said it best. Racism isn't being discovered, it's being filmed. And if it wasn't for social media, and I love that Christian Cooper, the guy who was at the center point of all this, sat there and said it best. I filmed this because if it wasn't for this video, no one would believe me. Because let's be honest, when it comes to a white woman and a black man, and that black man is doing everything under the book, he is assumed to be the perpetrator. And that is truly fucked up. But I don't feel bad for the woman losing her job. I don't feel bad for the woman losing her dog. And yes, thankfully that she did surrender the dog to a shelter. And I don't feel bad about her getting fired. Because honestly, people really need to understand out there that a lot of things you do have consequences. A black person cannot turn around and call a white person and say, this white person is threatening me without some type of consequence. And the same so let it be said for the other side. They can't sit there and say, well, I'm going to say this black man's threatening me, but he's really not. And at the same time, expect nothing to happen. Much like this fellow, again, who decided that he wanted to sit there and play resident because he saw black people working out in the gym that the residency has and decided that he wants to pull their credentials.
Come on, bro. Watch out. We pay right here. What'd you say we can't do?
I'm Tom Austin. I'm a tenant in the building. Are you?
We're all tenants in this building.
What office?
Don't worry about that. I don't know what to say.
What office?
So we have an office here, and this guy came accusing us we can't be here.
What office are you in?
Don't worry about that. We don't have to tell you
I'm calling
anything.
911 then.
Go ahead. As you guys can see, we're dealing with racism here.
Hey, this is Tom Austin. I'm in the gym with the mosaic. There's the whole, I don't know what to do here, but there's a whole bunch of people who don't appear to be part of the...
Y'all see this racism here?
Okay, so to give some context to that story, this also, again, it's all relative. This also happened in Minneapolis, where this tenant, as he decided to give his name on social media like a dumbass, was questioning these two gentlemen there that actually had an office space in said building, but they were in the gym working out. He believed that they didn't belong there and had started pestering them about where you're from, where's your office, all this stuff. And the young men were very smart. They sat there and said, well, we don't have to tell you. You're not with the building management. You're not the police and anything of that nature. So no, we feel no need to tell you nothing at all. And so the guy, he decided to call the police. Said, well, I'm calling 911. And this is why I sit there and say again, weaponizing law enforcement. When you weaponize law enforcement against black people, you are pretty much perpetrating a trend. Now, thankfully, when the cops did arrive there in a later story, no arrests were made. But in the way of cosmic justice, that young man, man who accused those two black men of not being there, his office's leases were actually terminated by the leasing company, and he was ordered to vacate the premises. So there is some small justice in that. But again, for me, it's like it is hard for me to literally sit there and say that more should be done. More should be done to prove a point. I believe that anybody that weaponizes the police against a black person and tries and does a falsified report about it, about saying they fear for their life, that should be labeled as a hate crime. That should be. It should be labeled as a hate crime. Lynching by now, understand, we are in 2020. Lynching just became a hate crime. Let me repeat this. The year is 2020. Lynching has just become a hate crime. Because it took, and the thing about it is, it wasn't a unanimous vote on that. 8 Republicans voted against lynching making a federal hate, making the act. 8 Republicans pretty much rejected or voted no on the act of making lynching a federal hate crime. That alone speaks volumes where we're at in this world right now. But speaking of things of social media, Dorito decided that, you know what, I'm going to finally take on the social media and be a social justice warrior in every wrong way.
Checking the president for the first time. Twitter tonight added, this has never happened before, fact-checking links to President Trump's tweets about mail-in voting. As you can see, Twitter now prompting users to get the facts about mail-in ballots because what the president had tweeted wasn't true. Clicking on that link takes users to a page which includes a section, what you need to know. And the move follows Trump's false claims today that mail-in ballots cast in California will be, quote, substantially fraudulent and result in a, quote, rigged election. Tonight, Trump responding on Twitter, of course, writing, Twitter is completely stifling free speech, and I, as president, won't allow it to happen. Brian Stelter joins me now. So, Brian, I want to talk about that in 1 second. But first, the significance of this move. Twitter's been under a lot of pressure to do it. It's not easy to do. It's a slippery slope. What prompted it now?
It's a step toward Twitter being more of a newsroom, acting more like an editor. And once they've taken this action once, they will be under pressure to do it again and again because the president posts hundreds of things that are untrue or misleading or dangerous on the platform. Twitter up until now has not taken action, so it's a big deal that they are taking action. However, this is like spitting at Godzilla or spitting into the ocean. Pick whatever metaphor you want. This is a very minor action toward a very major problem, and that is a war on truth that continues every day unabated, not just by President Trump, but by many others using social media platforms. So it is notable Twitter's taking action.
So I'm going to stop right there because he's going into a rant. So let me get this straight. COVID deaths have reached over 100,000 people, lives lost. Trump is silent. Stock market is in a free fall. Dorito silent. People's income and unemployment benefits need to be increased. Dorito silent. Twitter puts a fact checking on one of Dorito's tweets. Instant, we need to go ahead and try to do an executive order on trying to shut down or trying to limit the social media on what can be said. That's what gets him off. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys when it comes to Twitter. Twitter should have honestly banned Donald Trump a long ass time ago. The many times he has actually violated their TOS or their terms of use. He's actually violated multiple times. Even more so, the last one he shared, where if the looting starts, so does the shooting. He basically exempted violence, again, which violates Twitter's Use Act, which violates Twitter's use. And Twitter at this point, because they're so good at suspending or banning people from other areas, that apparently Doritos just seems to have this golden pass that his account still doesn't get banned. I'm sorry, Twitter, much like Kentucky, because Kentucky, I'm going to keep pointing you out as the election cycle gets near. Mitch McConnell is literally the wall that Trump always wanted. Please get rid of his ass. Please and thank you. In the same sense for Twitter. Twitter could do the whole world one big ass favor right now and ban Dorito from ever having a Twitter account. They could do it. It's possible. And even more so, even on the very same platform that I'm speaking right now, the big brother behind Facebook, Zuckerberg, decided that, he's going to side with the president. Let's see if my post doesn't get killed as I'm playing this.
Is going to try to rein in social media companies through an executive order. This comes after Twitter fact-checked one of his tweets.
Yeah, first time they've done it. Overnight, the company's CEO, Jack Dorsey, said that labeling the president's, that is the U.S. president's tweets with fact checks does not make the company an arbiter of truth, and that the company will, though, continue to point out incorrect information. CNN business reporter Donnie O'Sullivan joins us now with more. Donnie, as you noted on this broadcast just yesterday, I believe Twitter does not want to get into a war with the president. They're concerned about their business, frankly. Tell us what message Jack Dorsey was putting out here now.
Yeah, guys, it's been a huge 48 hours for Silicon Valley. Twitter fact-checked Trump's false claims about mail-in ballots in California. Facebook did not. Trump is not happy with Twitter, but he is taking it out on all of Silicon Valley, saying big tech is anti-conservative and it is stifling free speech. He is, as you mentioned, expected to sign an executive order today about how social media platforms police comments on their services. And with attacks from the White House, you might think that Silicon Valley would come together, but no. Mark Zuckerberg actually went on Fox News last night to call out Twitter for fact-checking Trump. Have a listen.
We have a different policy, I think, than Twitter on this. I just believe strongly that that Facebook shouldn't be the arbiter of truth of everything that people say online. I think in general, private companies probably shouldn't be, or especially these platform companies shouldn't be in the position of doing that.
And Jack Dorsey responded pretty much directly to Mark Zuckerberg late last night, saying that what Twitter is doing is just trying to get voters accurate information about what's going on. Now, our colleague Brian Fung has seen a draft of the executive order that's expected to be signed today. And if this is a law that makes platforms exempt from being held liable for what is being posted on their platforms, the ironic thing here is, of course, Trump has made false claims.
We still live? We still live? Woo! Okay. Well, Zuckerberg ain't found us yet. Okay, cool. Just to make sure. Because thank you, Alex. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. You had a good run, Will. You're about to get zugged. I thought I was. I ain't gonna lie to you. That was one of those. If you mention the Reich known as Zuckerberg, you get zucked. But all kidding aside, folks. That Dorito has decided that he's gonna do an executive order against social medias, against them. And I never thought I'd say this. An executive order to regulate social media from basically banning or controlling speech. And Zuckerberg decides to sit there and say, and I wish I could make this up. He literally turns around and says, well, we shouldn't be arbiters of truth and making sure that anything that is said online is 100% accurate. Yes, that came out of that billionaire's mouth. And I'm just trying to figure out for the life of me, what's wrong with that? Like, the simple fact of the matter is, we as a people complain or question the huge amount of misinformation out there, especially on social medias. What is so wrong about making sure that whatever is being put out there is accurate and verified? That's my point. I would love to go to a Facebook where you go down there and you don't have to question any article that's put out because it's found out to be validated and true. That's how it should be. That's how the news was. The news from its inception up until Fox News decided to create a narrative was exactly that. It wasn't about changing your mind. It wasn't trying to persuade you. It wasn't trying to influence you. It was literally about giving you all the facts up front and allowing you to make an informed decision and have your opinion, formulate your own opinion. It wasn't about the simple fact of the matter. It's just like Fox News did a long time ago, where they turned around and they took an extreme right agenda and they ran with it because they knew they could find their audience, and they are still finding their audience, even though their audience is dying off. Trust me, them 55 and up people who literally and figuratively are hard conservative stance people. Trust me, that generation is dying off, and Fox News knows it. But at the same time, I have nothing against the simple fact of the matter is, yes, I would love to go to a Facebook or a MySpace. MySpace is still around, or a Black Planet. For all those who can remember Black Planet, I would like to go to a social media where, yes, everything is fact-checked and true, and then you can go from there as far as making up your own mind. Because misinformation leads to the simple fact of the matter that a lot of people get this stuff screwed. They get stuff messed up. So I have nothing against it, and it's amazing to me how two people right now could turn around and honestly affect the world as we know it, because the world operates through social media. It does. That is a $1 trillion operation that businesses and advertisers and commercials and everything in the sun has to go through those 3 gates. Well, actually now I guess it's 5 gates. Let's see: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. TikTok is still new. I'm missing one. Twitter. There we go. So five social gates, 5 of the huge social media gates everybody goes through, and of course a lot of unknown ones. But again, there is nothing wrong with the idea of adding a little bit of fact checking to something to make it more prestigious and to give it a proper reputation. If I can say reputation, that'd be great. What do you say, guys? Margie, Facebook allows users to report posts. This is opposite of what Zuck said there, because Zuckerberg is a dick. If it wasn't, I mean, if anything we've learned from Mark Zuckerberg, he is literally the epitome of what most conservatives feel like as a success story. That's just being honest. But moving right along, guys. Just a couple more stories we got before we get to the end of this. This story, like I said, it's not just black people at this point that are pretty much under attack, because, like I said, in Doritos America, they feel like if you ain't white, you're a threat. Even more so to where you decide if you hear someone speaking a different language, that you can go redneck trailer crazy.
Cordovez and his wife Leah Franco are natives of Ecuador, currently living in New Orleans, where Leah is finishing her medical residency. In the course of doing that, Dr. Franco has been treating COVID patients day after day. So to decompress, the couple decided to spend the weekend in Houston over the holiday to unwind. Sunday afternoon, they were looking for a restaurant when they noticed a woman following in a car behind them.
So we stopped a little bit on the side, and she was still there.
She stopped behind us.
She stopped behind us. After that, she started showing a hammer through the mirror.
She was shaking her hands like this and cursing at us, I think.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what did I do?
The couple called 911 and turned into a gas station at Westheimer and South Shepherd. The woman followed them.
And that's when she pulled beside us and started screaming at us. And we yelled, "What do you want?" And she said, "Stop following." And then she screamed, "You Mexicans, go get out of my effing country. Go back to your effing country."
The woman got out of her car with a hammer and seemed to be threatening them with it. Before the situation escalated further, police arrived and took her into custody. Police identify her as 60-year-old Constance Lynn Bono. She was arrested Sunday and remains in jail today. So far, investigators haven't been able to say what sparked the incident. But for Dr. Franco and her husband, their first trip to Houston was surprising and scary.
I think she needs help. She needs treatment. But that doesn't justify the fact that she needs to follow the laws of her country.
Now, what's crazy about that is, that story, aside from a white lady with a hammer decided that she wants to go, basically harass a couple just because they're speaking a different language. I'm gonna be honest. In the armory of America, what if that couple had guns? If that couple had guns and that woman came up to them with a hammer, and let's just say that couple decided to fear for their life and fire, I wonder what would have been the story then. Would it have been that armed couple defends themselves from hammer wielding lady, or for the simple fact of the matter is, will they sit there and say a couple murdered an older American citizen because they felt they were threatened and decided to take the gun law and use it against them and use it in their favor? Because that's the way the story would have been told on that note. The story would have been told on that note because of that, just because, for number one, in Doritos America, white people feel like they can do anything without certain consequences. And I used to have a shirt, which I need to find and start wearing, where my shirt sat there and said, don't let your privilege write a check that your ass can't cash. Because I used to tell people at the time when white people started getting really bold, I used to sit there and say, okay, try me. Because it's not, some days I'm Malcolm, some days I'm Martin. You can try to roll the dice on which day that's going to be. But again, that's just so crazy. Like I said before, the actions that are being done are only because of the simple fact of the matter of the lack of consequences that are out there. And yes, I do blame Dorito because this is all his people. His people love him because he's a fucking wet dream. He is exactly what they aspire to be. So it's not surprising that the stories that we come out with are just getting crazier. Not Tiger King crazy. I'm still waiting for that one to come out. But again, this just goes to show you what we are dealing with on a daily basis. And it's amazing that, even President Obama, which I have to give this man credit for, because President Obama at this moment, now yes, I will still call him President Obama, get used to it, where he sat there and actually gave a statement, and I'm going to share the statement before we get to our last story, where he talked about George Floyd, and he sat there and said like this: I want to share the parts of the conversation that I had with friends over the past couple of days about the footage of George Floyd dying face down the street under the knee of a police officer in Minnesota. The first email is an email from a middle-aged African-American businessman. Dude, I gotta tell you, the George Floyd incident in Minnesota hurt. I cried when I saw the video. It broke me down. The knee on the neck is a metaphor for how the system so cavalierly holds black folks down. Ignoring the cries for help, people don't care. It's truly tragic. Another friend of mine used the powerful song that went viral from 12-year-old Keaton Bryant to describe the frustration he was feeling. The circumstances of my friend and Keaton may be different, but their anguish is the same. It's shared by me and millions of others. It is natural to wish for life just to get back to normal as a pandemic and economic crisis upend everything around us. But we have to remember that for millions of Americans, being treated differently on the account of race is tragically, painfully, and maddeningly normal. Whether it's while dealing with the healthcare system or interacting with the criminal justice system or jogging down the street or watching birds in the park. This shouldn't be normal in 2020 America. It can't be normal. If we want our children to grow up in a nation that lives to its highest ideals, we can and must be better. It will fall mainly on the officials of Minnesota to ensure that circumstances surrounding George Floyd's death are investigated thoroughly and that justice is ultimately done. But it falls on all of us, regardless of our race or station, including the majority of men and women in law enforcement who take pride in doing their tough job the right way every day, to work together to create a new normal in which the legacy of bigotry and unequal treatment no longer infects our institutions or our hearts. Now, I have to give President Obama that credit because, again, keep in mind, the man himself literally is not president anymore, but still has to come in and do his job because the current one is fucking up. And, of course, Dorito at this point did sit there and say that he did feel for the family of George Floyd and said that federal investigation will be pending regarding that. I would say take it with a grain of salt. I also take it with a grain of salt, and this kind of scares me more, not as much as, having a target on my back because I'm a black educated man, but the fact of the matter is that, well, Trump is still blaming China.
The U.S. is terminating its relationship with the World Health Organization. Natalie Brand has the latest.
President Trump announced the U.S. is pulling out of the World Health Organization.
We will be today terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization and redirecting those funds to other worldwide and deserving urgent global public health needs.
The change comes as the U.S. death toll from the coronavirus surpassed 100,000 this week. He blames the organization for its response to the pandemic and accuses them of favoring China.
China has total control over the World Health Organization, despite only paying $40 million per year, compared to what the United States has been paying, which is approximately $450 million a year.
The president says the administration will take steps to sanction China in response to the country's new security law that threatens Hong Kong's long-standing independence.
The United States will also take necessary steps to sanction PRC and Hong Kong officials directly or indirectly involved in eroding Hong Kong's autonomy and just, if you take a look, absolutely smothering Hong Kong's freedom.
The president announced the U.S. will no longer give Hong Kong the favorable trade relationship the island has always enjoyed.
China has replaced its promise.
Well, let's just go ahead and stop right there, because if you're wondering what this all means, I'll gladly tell you. Basically, Dorito is saying fuck China. He really is. But the simple fact of the matter is, he already, keep in mind, we still have a tariff dispute with China, and it amazes me so that Dorito still has a fight with where 90% of what we use comes from China. Keep in mind, 10% of what we use in the U.S. comes from the U.S. Everything else is overseas, mainly from the people that you're trying to have a tariff war with. And then now on top of this, you're terminating our relationship with the World Health Organization. Now, what that basically means is that with the World Health Organization, different nations actually do contribute because they want to keep the World Health Organization as an independent group to actually assist with the idea of curing drugs and making vaccines, cures for diseases and known diseases, as well as research. Now, from our standpoint, yes, he is saying that we're going to cut off our funding, but he's only doing this in the childish form that China is somehow associated with this. Keep in mind, right now, the only person that's benefiting from this is Russia. Putin is loving this because that means that now his wife, Trump, will now go to him for certain things. They already started going to them for oil. They already started going to them for exports. Russia has already expanded in the areas where the U.S. has pulled out, and their economy has blossomed. Think about this. In a world where the global economy right now is literally could be going great or it could be going bad, Russia is cleaning up. Don't believe me? The Saudi family right now is bleeding money because the price of oil is still negative. And you can tell that because you look around certain gas station prices. Some people are still under $1. Some people are still under $2. It's like 2001 all over again. So again, for this whole simple fact of the matter of Trump literally doing all this is only for vanity. That's all it is for. And so again, not to mention the fact that we're still in loan to China for the two previous wars. I think we're still in the hole with them. And I'm surprised they haven't called back that loan yet. Which I think, yep. I kind of beat you to it, Margie. How much does the U.S. owe in loans to China? Somewhere close to $1 trillion now. With interest and everything, it was at the time of the 2011, we maybe owed China close to $100 billion, and I guess with the interest and everything else in the back, I'm pretty sure we still owe them quite a substantial amount. But yeah, it is so crazy that Dorito is still wanting to fight a foreign country. Simply put, because they're not praising him like Russia does. But that's all the stories we got, guys. We're gonna go ahead and do our feel good news segment just because, that was a lot. I knew when I started loading up these stories earlier today and just getting to the point of having it all sussed out, it was gonna be rough. It was gonna be rough. But I'm glad we got through it. And thank you guys for watching. And now I say with the feel good news segment because, like I say here on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of news throughout the week, and I know a lot of that news is good news, a lot of that news is kind of bad news, and it's kind of like you need a Drake news. And understand it's the weekend. Some of us are not working, some of us are working, some of us are not working, and at the same time, we are literally sitting there saying that we just need to relax, have some feel good, and still, it sparked the fact that we still might have a little bit of faith in humanity after all said and done. So really, the three stories I have here, I like the first one just because I think this is a really cool article. And I'm sorry, what did you say, Alex? This article from January says 1.1 trillion. Oh damn, I wasn't that far off. Okay, well, substantial amount. Thank you, Alex. So anyway, let me get to our first story where this guy. And I gotta be honest with you, I think this guy really started something. When I actually go to his YouTube channel quite a lot, just because besides this one and Fix This Old House, because I do like doing do-it-yourself projects. If you don't know who this guy is, this guy Rob Kitty started a YouTube channel called Dad How Do I, and he actually has a lot of how-to videos. it all started off with the fact that he wanted to have a close relationship with his kids because he didn't grow up as a father. So he didn't grow up with a father. His father actually left him when he was a teenager. I mean, he didn't. His father left him when he was very young, and there was a lot of things that he did not know how to do: tie his own tie, how to fix a toilet, how to do an oil change, things of that nature. So during the quarantine, this guy decided to do a lot of videos, as he talked about doing a YouTube channel that just shows how to do simple things, and which he called it "Dad, How Do I?" And of course, that's one of the videos right there, where he's basically, I mean, right now he is a father of two himself, who is a handyman, and he just, if you go to his YouTube page of Dad, How Do I, he has hundreds of videos where it just shows him saying, fixing normal stuff, how to fix a light fixture, how to unclog a pipe, how to fix most running toilets, stuff of that nature. And I thought that was pretty cool because, like most things in YouTube, and for all of us that usually do watch YouTube, we do watch it for sometimes learning certain stuff. I know I do, because honestly, a lot of people say that, because I like to work on cars, a lot of my knowledge, aside from reading car manuals like Bibles, was also because of videos like his, where, if I couldn't figure something out, or if I need a direction on how to do it, I usually would go to YouTube, because let's be honest, YouTube is kind of like it's kind of like the free library, if you will. That you don't have to worry about checking back in the card. But I thought that was pretty cool. What I also thought was pretty cool was this story of a woman who decided to give her entire stimulus check of $1,200 to a barber just to keep the doors open. And I thought this was cool as well, because the woman sent the letter with $1,200 and says, "Dear Mr. Woods, today is a happy day for me, and it's a day I've been waiting for. You see, ever since I received my stimulus check from the federal government, I wanted to give money to someone who needed it more than I. Someone who would use it wisely, someone who's worthy of help. I was so impressed with and thankful for your giving nature, for all you do for others, and for making me happy." And I don't know about y'all, business owners right now are hurting. I mean, that stupid PPP program really doesn't help them. It doesn't really get to everybody, especially for minority business owners, and also for business owners who are women. They don't get the fair share that they should get. So for simple fact of the matter is that you have people in the neighborhood that are just, that have the ability to give, are actually helping business owners, is also a very cool thing. At the same time, that just goes back to, like I said before, the neighborhood can save itself if people who have the means to help can do so. But I just love the fact of that story, where a woman just sat there and says, I'm paying it forward because you pay it forward. And, like I always said best, if you can pay it forward, then you should do so. And it doesn't always have to be money. Sometimes it can just be your time. Sometimes it can be your talent. Sometimes it can be whatever you can do. If all you have is two good hands and a strong back, find a place where you can be helpful. That's the way I look at it. And also, my last story is basically where I always sit there and say, grandparents will find any other way to make sure that they get to their kids. And this is unorthodox, but it does prove the point.
Of the big pink unicorn, it's been solved, and it's all good. Okay, there's a unicorn that was seen prancing down the street in suburban New Jersey this week. Oh. She looked like she was on a mission, like she did have some place to go, and she sure did. Before long, up came a little boy, running up. Epic hug. It was followed by that hug and then another. And you know why that little boy was so excited? Well, they realized that was Grandma in that inflatable suit. She hadn't hugged those two in 2 months of quarantine, so she zipped up the outfit, and she got a big surprise. So that's creative.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
By the way, I bet those unicorns.
Yep, that's right. Grandma was determined to hug her kids. And I thought that was a pretty good story. Like I said, grandparents will find a way to see their grandkids, even in this COVID-19. If it means they got to put on a unicorn suit and walk down the street and scare half the people who are probably either drinking or high at that point, they still see their grandkids, that's a small price to pay. Because I'm going to be honest, I love that story, but I'm just thinking to myself, what if somebody was smoking weed, or if somebody was drinking, and they saw a pink unicorn go walking down the street of their neighborhood? would you stop drinking and smoking? Because I'd be like, dude, let me put this shit down. I just saw a unicorn. No, real shit. I saw a unicorn walk down the street. No, I ain't smoked that much. I just took one hit, and next thing you know, I see a unicorn. Or I took one drink. Man, what is in this? What is in this bourbon? There's a pink unicorn right now walking down the street. Oh, so I'm the only one that sees the pink unicorn. Okay, I'm the only one. See, that would drive me nuts personally. But again, that's really all the stories I got, guys. I do have to thank everybody for watching. I know this was a rough one. It was rough to watch, and it's not to say that this is not, the intent is not to, the intent of this for these kind of things is not to scare, or it's not to install fear. It's to educate. And that's my whole thing. The whole thing about these shows is education. It's about, especially in the sense that, yes, I'm pretty sure that, a lot of law enforcement officers, which some of them I know, will see this and still sit there and say, well, you just don't like the police. And I still say, fuck the police. You're exactly right. Until you show that you care and do the right thing and call your people out. But aside from that, everything we try to show here, or I should say I try to show, I keep saying like there's a whole bunch of people behind me, but everything I try to show is literally about informing, because that's my whole thing. It used to be to a point to where the news was about informing. I don't try to go out there and change people's minds. I don't try to go out there and persuade people. I simply want to present the facts as they are and inform you of all of them and allow you to make up your own damn mind, as it should be. Not to persuade, not to join an argument, not to instigate an argument. It's literally presenting the facts and going from there. Because the facts themselves is the most purest narrative that can be given, because facts can't be argued, nor determined, nor deterred. But aside from that, guys, let me also, like I said, thank you again for all watching. Some shameless plugging before I do get out of here, because the format for today has changed a little bit. I'll start with Vaughn, Big BZA Dot, who's probably watching this or is probably still waking up. But he actually has a few podcasts of his own. Let me also start with his social media. You can find him at Big BZA Dot on Facebook, also on YouTube at Big BZA Dot Podcast, and on Twitch at Big BZA Dot. And his shows that he has, one of them is called the BSTs, the Busy Solo Takes, is a news podcast. That news can be video games, music, or trailers, informational, and interactive shows just like mine. He also has Rhythm This, which will actually be a little bit later tonight here at my place, where it's a musical review in which he goes over the albums of the past and present, grades to a 4-tier rating system. And sometime this week will be Random as Fuck. What is Random as Fuck? It is the pool of ranches we sometimes dip our toes into to take from regular life and have a chuckle. Some bills make you think, some bills make you cry, some bills will stick with you. I still have to show the people the one of my personal favorite. But all of his shows can be found under his social media handle, Big BZA Dot. Also, my other brother from another mother, Thomas Reed, aka Mountain Puncher, has To Be Determined Fitness podcast, in which, if you've seen Thomas Reed on Facebook and also on YouTube, he is a guy that likes to work out, loves to talk about working out. There are certain routines, nutrition, and just gives his personal testimony, because he truly believes if you want to make yourself better, then you can definitely do so, but the results depend upon you. Now, his show is usually every Saturday from 3 to 5. Go on his Facebook at Thomas Reed to check him out. Also, my other brother from another mother, Trace Brown, King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, DJ King Wayne on YouTube, and DJ King Eddie Wayne on Twitch, has a couple podcasts of his own. The first one's called The Bump Down, which is music, culture, knowledge, and numbers, in which he goes over album sales and gives his inner perspective on the musical, on the recording industry, as well as telling us, who's going to be hot and who's not. He also has another show called The Smoke of Truth, I like to call the Check Your Ego at the Door podcast, in which he has an unorthodox view, but a very opinionated view. And if you're willing to talk to him, then dagnabbit, he's willing to talk to you, because Trace always wants all the smoke. Now, as for yours truly, the shows that I have, of course, How the Frack We Got Here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. A little bit later tonight, between 7:30 to 9:30, will be the Off Limits podcast. It is my podcast that, with a group of people, we do talk about anything and everything, and I do mean anything and everything, just to prove the simple fact of the matter that we can actually have a great conversation. And of course, also on Sunday will be my Get Bit podcast, which is my blurred podcast that covers music, video games, anime, science fiction, all things pop culture. And of course, every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. is my Burned Out podcast, in which, as people have told me, as you've heard people mention me as tech support, I do tell 3 stories, 3 true stories. I always want to say true stories. I know a lot of people sit there and say, these stories feel made up. I wish they were. They're not made up. They're actually true stories, and a lot of people who have worked with me can actually validate that. But I tell 3 stories from the point of an IT technician, just for a little bit of laughs and to educate some people, because you never know. And aside from that, it's just from the tales of a burned out IT person. But all of my shows can be found under my Facebook page at William Buchanan, and also each of the shows have their own Facebook and YouTube page. You just simply have to look up, whether on YouTube or Facebook, you either look up How the Frack We Got Here, The Optimus Podcast, Get Bit, that is GITBIT, and of course the Burned Out Podcast. You can look for them either on either Facebook or YouTube and be able to watch every video I've done so far. Aside from that, like I said, with COVID-19 still out there, and also with all the protests of George Floyd, guys, be safe. That is the best thing I can sit there and say. There's nothing wrong with protesting. There's nothing wrong with getting out there and showing that you want to be a part of a change. Definitely be safe. Be careful of riots and things of that nature, because they'll find any and all excuse they will find any and all excuse to lock you up and do much worse. And for those that are still with the COVID-19, understand it's still out there. Cases are still rising, but again, the whole thing about being safe. If you know you're sick, stay at home. If you feel like you're sick, stay at home. It's just best to do that, just because we are trying to still flatten the curve on this. And also, thank you to everybody that works in doctors and hospitals. I'm talking doctors, nurses, doctors' aides, nurses' aides, receptionists, orderlies, environmental services people. Thank you those that work in Amazon, UPS, FedEx, DHL, United States Postal Service, in all essential areas like grocery stores, gas stations, things of that nature. Truckers who still actually risk to bring food in, things of that nature. You guys all play a very important part. Now, you guys deserve a lot more than what you're getting, especially you doctors and nurses, because if I were y'all right now, I'd be screaming, wipe out our student loans. That's just me. But you guys deserve so much more, but all I can do is thank you from here. And finally, if you notice, the thing above my head is just the Cash App for these shows, just to make things better. If you can donate, that's cool, and if you can't donate, that's fine as well. I just ask that, hey, for all those that you might find somebody who's interested in the stuff that I do, to share my show with them, or to give me an opinion. Because like I said, if you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. I am just trying to definitely change it to where it's a platform to where everybody can enjoy, because all I'm trying to do is to instigate conversation and also to inform you. Because the whole point of How the Frack We Got Here is staying informed. It is not about trying to change your mind. It's not trying to persuade you. It is simply trying to give you an idea, is that not to take everything at face value, to go out there and find the truth for yourself and be able to back it up with reputable sources, so that way you can sit there and show everybody all the rest of the facts and inform them properly. Because an informed community make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump, and that's how the Frack We Got Here. I thank everybody for watching. I thank everybody for commenting, and if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on the playback, feel free to comment as if I'm here. I still want to know your opinions on everything. But above all else, guys, stay safe. Stay safe. Look out for each other. And aside from that, we gonna get through it if we all decide to work together.